Hello and thanks for checking out ChartGuys.com. We're proud to be one of the most successful technical analysis communities online, teaching you the skills to become a more confident, effective, and informed trader. Join our community of hundreds of analysts worldwide working together to learn the charts, generate profit, and achieve financial independence. For access to daily live chart analysis and market coverage, a thriving chat community, along with dozens of hours of exclusive educational materials. We look forward to seeing you. Let's check out some charts. Checking in on the MJ sector, first things touching base on the video yesterday. Thanks for some of you pointing out the possible scenario that the volume yesterday was the ETF rebalancing. I go live for members before making these videos at the end of the stock trading day, and I pointed that out as a possible scenario for them and forgot to repeat myself in the video yesterday, so good catch. That's definitely a possible scenario for the 2 p.m. volume we saw 2 days ago, or yesterday actually. As far as today's trading day, not the follow-through the bulls we're looking for most names, but we're seeing a clear distinction where some names performed much better than others. And today was the kind of morning where if you're going to gap up open in a prolonged downtrend, still in a fear cycle of the sector, you're going to see profit taking. So that's what we got with a lot of higher opens thanks to the S&P 500 strength. S&P 500 is testing key resistance, by the way. That's important to be watching. But CGC is still very weak. So yes, CGC saw a little higher low and higher high. We still have daily exponential resistance. You could just zoom out the time frame to the 2-day chart, and this would be a potential bear flag. So bottom line is CGC bulls are not proving anything to us until we can get over these daily exponential resistances, and we have not closed 2 days over the 26 period exponential resistance on the daily time frame since May. It's now been 4 months, and that was pretty much the price double ago. So a 50% haircut, and it's been a long time. Have to close over these daily exponential resistances for the bears to prove anything. So we've talked in the past about the potential of a dethroning, and a lot of people know that CGC has been hurting, and a lot of people think that I don't like APHA. In reality, I didn't like the chart of APHA for years. That is changing. If APHA weekly trend changes, I will gladly crown it the sector leader, technically speaking, and that's why I'm currently in a position. We'll talk about that now. So APHA, the weekly trend change that we need to see is a bull break of 760, and if this is the only major Canadian MJ name changing its weekly trend, you better believe it's going to be the most bullish name that's out there. So that's definitely something we're watching for. The short-term resistance level broke today. We were looking at a little double top at 625, or actually no, it was 654, which was the little double top, and now we're looking at 680 and 696 as two other short-term resistances. Very clear standout day today where it held up better than everybody else. And there was a part to this morning where the S&P 500 dropped hard and got really oversold on the 5 minutes. CGC went red, and CRON was red, and ACB was red, and APHA was hovering just around break even and slightly green. So the way I played this morning is I gave the bulls a chance first thing after the bell rang, and then as soon as I saw weakness, I sold half of my position at 649 from an entry 635. So what that did was that locked in a solid chunk that would then allow me a lot of comfort, because the break-even point on the trade for me after selling that part of my position would then be 621. So I am a long way before even going break even. That keeps me comfortable. And the fact that it's a smaller position now makes me comfortable holding this position longer. My account is not going to fluctuate significantly from day-to-day basis unless we have nice solid 4 or 5% days, which I'll certainly take. But at this point, again, extremely comfortable and watching the hourly uptrend. And that's what kept me holding this morning. I said, yeah, that's a pullback. That's more than the bulls would like to see, but it's an hourly higher low. And I did put a stop loss on the second half of my position under 640 once the initial morning action played out. And fortunately, we didn't drop to a lower low, and I kept that position. Increasing bull volume at the end of the day, definitely notable. There was some talk on CNBC about the sector and about the documentary that's going to be in just about an hour now. And that led to a little bit of some strength and follow through. So for APHA, anything above 640 tomorrow is an hourly higher low, and eyes will be on 680 as the first short-term resistance level to be watching. And I'm going to give the bulls as much space as I can to try and see this move play out. And by seeing this move play out, I mean, I want to see a break of 760, and I will gladly hold looking for that to take place as long as we keep these little daily higher lows. So we have to hold 614 and form a higher low compared to that level next time we consolidate. And I'll certainly keep you posted on what my thoughts are on that chart. ACB, so we had news with TGOD and ACB, where ACB sold TGOD's shares and divested from that company. So both names took a hit from that. ACB rejecting from daily exponential resistance. We dropped down support of 543 and 538, held, but just barely. But again, just like CGC, this ACB daily chart is doing nothing to prove anything to the bulls as far as follow through goes. Gap up for selling, and now we just watch the daily exponential resistances as a visual guide again. CRON, no follow through, same boat as ACB and CGC, still very weak. 1135 was short-term resistance. We broke it, but we double topped at the high of yesterday and got no follow through. As soon as we break that high of yesterday, or excuse me, as soon as we reject from that high of yesterday, profit taking sets in, and CRON was the first to go over 1% red out of the major names on my screen this morning, and it held that way. So again, bulls have to get over daily exponential resistance. Where's APHA's daily exponential resistance? It's support. That's a very big difference from where these other names stand. TLRY, battling its daily exponential resistance. So a solid move. We did get a little follow through. Most important resistance level for me is 3240. And if we don't break 3240, it is the potential setup for that mini little inverse head and shoulders pattern where we would have to form a higher low and hold 2515 support and then break those resistances. Watching the hourly uptrend at this point. And you could say that the hourly uptrend is still intact. You could say that it was broken. Either way, I wouldn't argue with you too much. But 2777 is the most important support. And the bulls are hoping an hourly higher low comes from that end of the day consolidation. HEXO. So why did I cover HEXO yesterday in the video and not OGI? The reason is the little differences between the two. Yesterday, let's eliminate today's action. So yesterday, HEXO clearly broke over the high of the last 5 trading days. It had an uptick in bull volume, and it closed at the high of the day. OGI yesterday did not break resistance, did not see any notable bull volume, and did not see anything that stood out. So I X'd out the OGI chart, and I left HEXO on. Look at the follow through. Again, this is just one small example, but this is an example of looking at small little clues in these indicators, whether it's volume or whether it's the price levels, that can help us. Because today, OGI ended up closing weak near the low of the day, and we did close green by 1 penny. But if you look at HEXO, it's a completely different story. And HEXO closed up multiple percent. So those little clues are what can help us determine who is the name that we should be in. And that is why I chose OH and APHA as my 2 plays from yesterday. And those are 2 names that held up really well today, when a lot of other names did not. So those little clues comparing individuals in the same sector are essential to try and get the edge as to which name to be watching. So for HEXO, the next resistance level after 430, the high of today, we're going to be looking at 436 and then 458. We have not changed the daily trend. This move is coming straight off the low. So when we lose the hourly uptrend, we'll need the higher low and higher high to change the daily trend from there. Hourly higher low to keep the bulls in full control is down at 411. So anything above 411 keeps the hourly uptrend, and the bulls want to create as much space as possible for that daily higher low to have space to form whenever we do top out. OGI, who cares? Tweak. 411, 397 support. Again, HEXO getting through daily exponential resistances right now. Just the 26 period to get over. OGI not even testing either of those levels. So add OGI to the list with CGC, ACB, CRON, all these names that have to get over daily exponential resistance for us to care about what they're doing as bulls. So TGOD, and this is what traders who don't like technical analysis love to point to and say, see, look, you couldn't see that coming, and news ruins any technical analysis setups. And yes, news absolutely can ruin setups, and it's one of the major reasons why I strongly prefer day trading as opposed to swing trading. But how many days have news? When's the last time we had news on TGOD that significantly changed the shape of the chart, aside from earnings, of course, which was known news? But aside from that, it's not often. So if it happens 5% of the time or 10% of the time, that's the 90 or 95% of the time that we can use technical analysis to our advantage otherwise. So it was a big setback. Definitely deflated all momentum from the bulls. We were close to looking for a weekly trend change, and now we're just looking back down at our low of 264. The significant volume and no bounce shows us that there's a lot of supply of shares and not a lot of demand today. So definitely some unloading going on, and we will expect an oversold bounce, but there's no sign of it at this point. Short-term clear resistance, 296 is the first level that would have to break, and support is down at 290. VFF had news today, bulls responding well to it. The gap to fill was at 1083, and we dropped down, filled that gap, and closed strong near the high of the day. So we do have a little higher low and higher high again. Actually, I take that back, we don't, because every single candlestick was a lower high here. So we have a little higher low, but I don't consider this a trend change. It's a very strong move the last 2 days, and the weekly higher low certainly looks set. Again, in the same category as APHA, much more developed on its weekly trend change attempt than any other major names. But bulls have to break 1460, and that's still 25% away or more. So the question now is, are we going to see a weekly equilibrium through September? Are we going to see our low, high of the bull move, higher low, lower high, and a tightening range through September? That's a possibility. We still need a daily trend change whenever this move tops out. We'll need a clear daily higher low and higher high. But as of right now, we're looking at 1159, 1167, and $12 as short-term resistances. Hourly chart needs a new higher low to form because the low of the day is the last support level that we found. So we'll need a higher low compared to 1077. And we don't have it yet. But a nice strong close. Labs. So Labs is looking a little toppy on its bounce as it's struggling with daily exponential resistance. Anything under 528 was just a lower high. We're struggling under that level. And if we do pull back further, we've already broken the pattern of a higher low each of the last 3 days. So we have to form a daily higher low compared to 426. So we'll have to hold 426 and break 518 if we do get bear follow through tomorrow to try and confirm a daily trend change and get over the daily exponential resistance. On to the US names. Curaleaf holding on pretty well. Again, we have this documentary in 50 minutes, so no idea what they will say, whether it'll be bullish or bearish. I assume it'll have a bit of a bullish lean. One thing I want to talk about with the USMJ space is, again, just how thin it is, and we know that. That's what allows for the price to pull back 60-70% on such a long, prolonged downtrend. And that's what allows for, we're going to look at HARV here in just a minute. 5 days ago, HARV hit its low, and it's up over 40% since then. So it's very thinly traded. And I was watching OH today on its bull break, so thinly traded that the spreads were over 1% between the bid and the ask, and $25,000 was moving the price 1%. And if you think about what is required to move CGC or CRON or APHA 1%, we're talking double-digit millions of dollars for the most part. $25,000 versus double-digit millions. Why is there such a big difference? The exchanges that we're listed on. Why is it such a bullish event when an individual name gets uplisted? Because what market makers do is create a stash of shares. They have to load up on shares to be able to create a liquid and orderly market. And that's why a name like Apple, a big day on Apple is 2 or 3%. And that's because there's market makers with hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions, of shares that fill bids and asks. And market makers can make their money just scalping these tiny little pennies, but if they do it enough and on large enough positions, day after day after day, they're making bank consistently. So market makers load up on shares, which is why we see a run up and why we see strength. And then as soon as they have the shares that they need to create the orderly market, that is when we see the dollar volume required to see significant moves go up a large amount, because the supply of shares that is on the bid and the ask because of these market makers is so much larger. So a lot of people like to point at market makers and manipulation and all this, when in reality, we need market makers to be providing us liquid, tight bids and asks. Otherwise, you're going to be trading illiquid, large bids and asks, and it's going to be very hard to make money in the short term, because if you're buying and you want to turn around and sell shortly after, you're going to be spending a lot. I get a perfect example. I just bought a shotgun and it jammed. I never even fired it. I loaded it and unloaded it, and the magazine barrel jammed with the spring in there. So I called them back 3 days ago. I bought it and I said, I'm looking, this seems like a cheap gun. I want to return it for store credit and upgrade. And they said, well, we'll buy it back from you, but we can only give 70% store policy. We don't know what you've done with the gun, blah, blah, blah. So instantly, in 3 days, I go from buying it, and then it's down 70%. And that's essentially what you have with an illiquid market. You're buying it, and then if you want to sell it shortly thereafter, it's a long drop below. It's the same thing with gold. If you buy some gold coins online, there's a premium, and if you go and sell those gold coins back online, you're going to end up with a very quick, fat little loss because the bid and the ask spread is so wide. I went off on a tangent there. Hopefully that made sense to one of you. What are we talking about? Curaleaf. Daily higher low every day, above exponential resistance, hourly support. So hourly support is down at 988, little double bottom there. Look at that double top at 1033. We came down, we held support to the penny, and those are the two levels. So a clear double top and double bottom on the hourly. If we break hourly support, daily consolidation to form a higher low is underway. Bulls will target the exponential supports to hold a back test. And if we break bullish, then this move isn't done yet, and we're looking after 1033 up at 1035. TRUL, rejecting from daily exponential resistance. A weak bounce attempt at this point. 1031 and 991 are supports. Bulls have to get over exponential resistance to prove anything to us. CWeb, also a weak bounce on the daily. Most important range for me is 2159 support and 2381 resistance, as we are rejecting from daily exponential resistance here, trying to get some follow through on this bounce, but have to get over 2381 to prove anything. IAN is still range bound. We came right up to resistance of 345, tested it at the open and rejected. So still range bound at this point. And unless we break 345 or 312, I don't care what IAN is doing. MEDMEN in its equilibrium, continuing to tighten up. 253 key support, followed by 241. Bulls must hold 253 and break 273 for a bull break. And if 253 cannot hold, that's a bear break. So a break is imminent on MEDMEN, I would assume probably before next week. OH, really nice follow through. What stands out the most to me on OH is number one, it's a USMJ play that's hitting its highest price in 7 weeks. That's notable. Not many MJ names are doing that. Number two, increasing bull volume 3 days in a row. That's notable as well. So we didn't close over $8. That would have been ideal. We rejected from 8, and we have to close above that level. We did break 801, and again, this is what I'm talking about with liquidity. Look at this move on the 5-minute time frame. There's your bull break, and this volume, we're talking 90,000 volume on this 5-minute candlestick, 90,000 volume, 120,000 volume, and then profit taking of $150,000. So less than $500,000 traded pushed the price from 780 to 820 very quickly, 5%, and then gave it all right back. That's illiquidity right there. That's probably someone market selling a 10,000 or 20,000 share position, 10,000 or 15,000 share position, and then just completely wiping it out because there's no bid support. And again, that's the market maker's job. They fill in, and they already have shares on hand. They have shares to sell, and they have shares to buy. And so they would be putting shares to buy on that bid to protect from a 5% dump in one candle. So for OH, the hourly higher low, bulls need to hold 772 to keep complete control, and the next resistance after 820 is going to be up at 829 and 856. HARV, increasing bull volume. Very significant. Definitely was an end of the day paint job. Someone with 300 grand said, hey, let's move the price 5% and close really strong on $300,000 of market buys, and it worked. So 782 is very clear resistance from here. We have not changed the daily trend convincingly. I need a clear higher low and higher high for that to take place. And it's all about 782 from here. and the daily exponential moving averages as potential support when we do pull back and look for that daily higher low. GTII, daily higher low is at 1117, resistance 1233, and then $13. So trying to get some bounce follow through. Over the exponential resistance, that's a good start. Look at it, reject, reject, reject. Now it's in support. But the weekly chart's still a clear downtrend. Anything under 1368, just a weekly lower high. So that's where we stand in the sector as a whole. Some names standing out much stronger than others. We'll see if that can keep up. We'll see what the reaction is tomorrow to the CNBC documentary. I don't expect anything significant. And I will have a break-even stop on OH from here. Very comfortable as far as having a lot of wiggle room to work with after the green today. And for APHA, watching the daily uptrend from here, because it's a smaller position at this point, I can hold it a bit longer. So to wrap up the gun story, I've been in a bit of doomsday prepper mode because why not? Might as well load up on some stuff to prepare just in case. So I called them and they told me 70%, and I said, okay, well, let me make you a deal. I'm looking for a handgun, and I'm looking to probably spend another $1,000 with you guys, and I'd like to do it with you guys because your employees are good. And if you will buy this $250 shotgun back at full price, I will come in today, buy a $450 shotgun, and then buy a handgun from you sometime this month. And he said, blah, 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 store policy, and this was the manager, and he turned me down. So he, for $70, he said, nope, we're not going to take it back full price. And I said, good luck, I'm going to go to your competition. So that's the gun story. And we'll end it here with some more yard update, and we'll see you all tomorrow. Do good things. So the ducks have slowly transitioned away. There has been some sightings. I haven't seen them in 4 days, which is the longest it's been, so I assume they're getting ready to fly south for the winter. So the next task, I still have to add manure and rotting wood and cover up those beds that we just made, but got some more mulch and already put down some manure thanks to Joshua here. Cleared out a bunch of grass, so I'm covering all this with mulch, and we'll do strawberries here next year. And these are all the raspberries behind them, so I'm gonna weed those and put some mulch over them, and probably gonna try and put some peach trees back there, but that'll be later in the fall. I'm gonna plant a bunch of bulbs for flowers to come up in the spring here around the waterfall as well. And then the next task after the mulching of the strawberries and the perennials will be making a big circular bed here and making it for monarchs and hummingbirds, just a whole bunch of perennial flowers. So we're gonna have to cut the grass real short, put a bunch of wood as a perimeter, and then put mulch and cardboard on top of that and kill off the grass over the winter and plant stuff in the spring. Just found out this is an edible variety of dogwood. So these little things are, it kind of tastes a little bit like a peach, but it's a very strange texture, and most of these aren't ripe just yet. But always cool to know. There's a bunch of them around town, so I was walking downtown the other day and just stopped and ate some fruit off the tree that most people wouldn't really know would be edible. The inside, yeah. Peach.